Today, Governor Jennifer Granholm making a personal pitch to Washington for more funds for our troubled state. She sent a letter straight to Vice President Joe Biden, which read in part, and let me read it, "Since at least 3 governors have stated they do not plan to accept all the funds, I would ask that these resources be made available to other states, particularly with the most significant economic challenges." They're the stimulus funds she's talking about. We're going to send it down now to Rick Elvin in the newsroom, who is live with the governor. Rick?
Fill in the blank. States with the most significant problems. Michigan. Governor Granholm is here. Thank you very much for joining us. You're going to be with us for Your Money, Your Questions, what has become a very popular segment. A lot of people have sent a lot of questions for you. But first, let's talk about this letter to the Vice President. You told us weeks ago that if some of these other states were going to leave money on the table, that you were going to try to get it. How good of a chance do you think you have of getting some more money?
Well, today's the deadline, so all of the states have to say by today whether they're going to accept the stimulus dollars or not. You know, there's a few states who have been making a lot of noise about this, probably 3 or 4.
Louisiana, South Carolina.
Well, we'll see what happens. I think they've gotten a lot of grief from their own citizens about saying they're going to turn it back, because ultimately the stimulus dollars helps people. It's tax cuts for people. It's health care for people. So bottom line is, what I sent today was to the Vice President, because he's supposed to oversee all of this, that if other states turn back money, Michigan is the first in line to be able to take that, because we've got such need.
Numbers today on unemployment are not good. 8.5% nationally here in Michigan. It is a category we have been leading throughout the last several months. No place you want to lead, but there's no reason to believe that those numbers, when they come in state by state, are going to be any better. Well,
clearly what's happening with the auto industry, I mean, no, it's not a secret here. Manufacturing and automotive are one of the leading loss sectors across the country. We have, 7 times the concentration of the other states, and that's why we're hit hardest. This is why we've got to continue to focus on using that recovery money to diversify our economy and putting the pedal to the metal with respect to our diversification plans.
Governor, thank you. We're going to have you here for the entire hour. I want you to think about that. The governor of the state of Michigan is going to be here answering your questions, and man, do we have a lot of them, from recovery to the auto industry to windmills. We'll talk about that. Governor's going to be with us. You can still go to my Twitter page at Rick Albin. You can send us questions, or to Your Money at WOODTV8.com. We'll be back in just a few minutes with some of your questions. Your Money, Your Questions, live from the 24-hour News 8 newsroom with Governor Jennifer Granholm for this entire hour, answering your questions. Governor, we've gotten dozens and dozens of them over the past few days, and just in the past few minutes we've gotten a whole lot more. Let's talk about some of the things people are asking most. Here's someone who asked, with the state in debt, a lot of companies are getting away without paying taxes. Tax breaks for new companies coming in, when existing companies might not get those tax breaks. Why is that?
Well, every single state in the nation is trying to lure jobs at this time. We want to be the most aggressive in the country because we have the greatest needs. So we do. We put very aggressive incentives in trying to get companies to come in, but we also help out those companies who are here now. And that I hope we get a chance to talk about, but believe me, we want to put everything on the table, both for existing businesses as well as for those we're trying to attract.
Tonight at 10 and 11, we're going to talk about the Michigan business tax and some of those other taxation issues. Here's one from Connie, who says she is a state employee, not a high-paid one either. I'm tired of the concessions asked of us, meaning state employees. Why is it always our wages and benefits that are cut? I think the House and Senate need to make some concessions, not vote themselves raises or increases in their expense accounts. And for the record, they don't vote themselves raises, but there has been some movement in that area.
There has. In fact, thank you, Connie. Thanks for serving. By the way, the citizens at this time, the state employees have made huge concessions over the past 6 years. I know they've had hundreds of millions of dollars of concessions to try to save taxpayer dollars. We've asked the legislature to do the same thing. I'm glad to say that this week, in fact, the House and the Senate both agreed that they should take a 10% pay cut. Constitution requires that it happen for the next term. I'm asking everybody to voluntarily give back. I give back now this year 10% of my pay. I hope the legislature steps up and does the same thing.
And they can do that voluntarily. And I don't want to get too far into it, but it's a constitutional issue. You can't change the terms of employment for elected officials during the term they were elected.
Right.
And that's a constitution.
But you can write a check back.
Nobody keeps you from doing that. I think we got a couple of minutes left. I want to refer to something that happened years ago upstairs in the studio after a debate during your first run for governor. And I wondered out loud to both you and then Lieutenant Governor Dick Posthumus, why would you want this job? It was clear it was going to be difficult, but nobody knew it was going to be this tough. How challenging has this been, trying to meet these kind of economic problems in the state?
There's no doubt that this is the state that has the most challenged economy in the nation because of the auto industry. In fact, my fellow governors have routinely voted me as the governor who's got the toughest job in the nation. It's not about me, because people are losing their jobs here, obviously. So this is why we've got the most aggressive effort to diversify this economy. We're putting the pedal to the metal, and we're going to use this Recovery Act, the stimulus dollars, to accelerate our plan to do that.
Pedal to the metal. Good segue. Next segment. Auto industry. What's going to happen to GM? What's going to happen to Chrysler? What is the governor going to say to the administration? All that and more. Your money, your questions.
Let's go back down to the newsroom now. Rick Elvin is with Governor Granholm answering your questions. Rick?
Thanks, Susie. This may be one of the biggest issues that people have asked us about, to ask the governor about. Governor, it is the auto industry. It is the lifeblood. We know that you want to diversify. We're going to talk about that, too, coming up. But we also know that there's a real pride, a real sense of ownership with the American car, and that a lot of people feel like it's under attack, not just from the Obama administration, but from Southern senators. I mentioned Richard Shelby earlier when you and I were talking, people who gave the automobile companies a real rough time about flying their private jets to Washington, but I don't remember anybody asking the bankers about flying their private jets.
Standards, right?
But let me start with this. Something that happened early this week that I was a little surprised by. Rick Wagner over at GM was essentially sent packing by the administration, which really made some folks nervous, and it concerned some people. Here's a question from David. Do you support the president forcing out the GM CEO?
Well, here's what I support. I support of the auto industry, and I know Rick Wagner, did he need to go? Really? Well, I think he took one for the team, and I think Rick Wagner would say that it's more than him. It's about more than him, that he really decided that for General Motors' sake, frankly, you're going to see changes on the board, too, of General Motors as a result of this. There had to be some symbolic change, but it begs the question about being tough with the banks as well, because there clearly has been a differentiation about how we treat a manufacturing industry versus a bank industry, and I sure hope that we're going to see that kind of tough action with respect to the banks too. Ultimately though, Rick, and to the questioner, what you heard on Monday when the president stood up and looked at us and said, we are going to have a viable auto industry. I support this industry. I'm going to stand behind their warranties. One way or the other, we need it for America. So I'm glad that they have heard that, and it's important for our state to realize that that's a statement of support. It may look a little different. It may be reconfigured in a different way, but ultimately we're going to have a viable auto industry, and we are going to be the place, darn it, that manufactures the electric vehicle and the batteries that go into that vehicle.
It'd be nice if there was something made in America. People lament all the time that our manufacturing
Don't
bases...
even get me going on it, man.
Because it's only a short segment. Ed Montgomery, Dr. Ed Montgomery is the person who's the point person, not for the automotive industry, but helping areas recover, helping communities, helping states, helping auto workers recover. He was here this week. He talked to you, and then he talked to a lot of my colleagues at the news conference. There were a lot of kind of tough questions. They want to know, what are you going to do? How is he going to help? What was your conversation with him like, and what did you come away with?
We spent hours with Dr. Montgomery talking about how we have been affected. I wanted him to understand the depth of the pain that is here and how important it is for us to have economic development help. We wanted to let him know what we were doing with respect to diversifying our economy, moving into areas like renewable energy, homeland security, and defense. How can we help these auto suppliers make sure that they diversify? And so we presented a whole series of our economic agenda and how their recovery plan and existing federal efforts can help Michigan. So he took all that information back, and hopefully what we will hear back is a series of steps that the federal government will take to address our needs.
I want to move through these quickly. Jerry and Ellen Wright, do you see any help for those workers who are not part of the unions, who are not directly employed by GM or Chrysler, but instead work for the small parts suppliers not making union wages?
This is a really, really good point, because there are thousands of small companies in Michigan who supply those parts. The cars have over 3,000 parts, and it's not just in Michigan, it's across the country. This is why we ask them, please address the supplier problem. If you don't address the supplier problem, then the auto industry goes down no matter what. So part of that was addressed last week. The Auto Task Force provided a means to guarantee the receivables of those auto suppliers. That's a fund that's going to be managed by the Detroit automakers. But what about the other suppliers? And this is what we asked of Ed Montgomery. Help us to help them. Make sure that they have the means to diversify. If they are making parts right now for cars, they can make parts for wind turbines. They can make parts for the defense industry, for the aeronautics industry. We want to make sure they have the means to be able to diversify themselves. That's our asset of the federal government.
This is a great question. I want to get it in. It won't take much of an answer because we're about out of time. We have the Michigan Lottery. Would it be possible for the state-run lottery to buy, say, $5 million worth of automobiles from our Michigan dealers? That, of course, would require them being restocked, etc. And then lottery tickets would be sold. Instead of winning money, you would win a Michigan-made car.
I love it. I love it. I'll ask Scott Bowen, who's from here,
that's right,
head of our lottery, whether that would be something we could do.
All right. Thanks very much, Governor. We're back, and you know, she was just talking a little bit about how some automakers and suppliers, manufacturers may get into diversified areas like alternative energy, wind turbines. We're going to talk about that and more. It's your money, your questions with Governor Jennifer Granholm when we come back.
Governor Jennifer Granholm at our station tonight, taking your questions, part of our commitment to help you through these trying financial times. She's in our newsroom right now with 24-hour News 8's Rick Elvin, who is never with a shortage of questions. We've gotten quite a few in for the governor. What, almost 100, Rick, or more?
More than that. Now, I was just checking the email with the governor, and I were looking at some of them. And look, I don't have to ask questions because you are. And after all, it's your money. Governor, it is good for you to be here and talk to folks because you know there's a lot of uncertainty out there. There are a lot of questions from people. One of the things you have talked about for a number of years is alternative energy, and Paul has this question. I am interested in starting a wind turbine manufacturing plant here in Michigan, wondering what tax incentives are available at the federal and state level. Let me expand that a little bit. What role, if you can address that, you talked a little bit about it, but you really see a larger role for alternative energy in Michigan than a whole lot of other people have talked about, including that alternative renewable energy portfolio, right?
Yeah, it's very clear that both the state and the federal policies are going to require a certain percentage of our state and federal energy to come from renewable sources. So where's that going to come from? We want to step into that breach. This is where, you know, Wayne Gretzky said, go to where the puck is, go to where the puck is going. The puck is going to renewable and alternative energy. So now we've got this workforce that knows how to bend steel to make cars. Why not take those displaced auto workers and have them bending steel to make wind turbines, which we know are in huge demand. Right now, the major wind turbine manufacturers have a 2-year wait to be because of the backlog of orders. Let's make them. Let's make them here. They're looking for places that have excess factory space available, transportation, big infrastructure, be able to move large objects. Let's do it. The federal government passed incentives, to your question, that will allow for a 30% production tax credit and a 30% manufacturing tax credit for those who are doing wind. We have incentives on the state level. I'd ask him to call our Michigan Economic Development Corporation or go to MichiganAdvantage.org. We want to get those wind turbine manufacturing opportunities here.
And of course, you go to WOODTV.com. We've got a link to all of that. Just about 30 seconds left. Governor, I know there's a big energy issue in weatherization.
Yes.
Lots of dollars, federal dollars available. Quickly tell us about
Michigan
this.
got hundreds of millions of dollars. Grand Rapids got a lot of money to be able to weatherize homes. That's a way of putting people to work, of reducing people's energy bills. If you make $40,000 or less, you can get over $6,000 worth of energy efficiency products installed in your home. Anybody who's had their home weatherized can reduce their energy bills by 25 to 30%. Call your community action agency.
Or go to WOODTV.com where we have all those links for you, Governor, as always. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending the entire hour.
Now to your money and your questions. Tonight we're getting the answers you need from Governor Jennifer Granholm. Since announcing that she would be here at our station, we received over 100 questions. Political reporter Rick Elvin put some of those questions to her and got the answers.
Your money, your questions. Governor Jennifer Granholm has been with us since 5 o'clock this afternoon talking about questions that you have sent to us. One of the biggest categories that we have heard about is unemployment. We know, Governor, that the unemployment system here in the state has been overwhelmed. We know that a lot of people have waited a long time to get their benefits, and we know you've had a lot to say about that. Many of the questions we got were from viewers wanting to know, what are you doing about it and what can you do about it?
Right. We've added 200 new people to be able to take those unemployment calls. We've added a whole new call center. We've upgraded our technology so that we're able to respond better. In fact, people can now file online, which we really encourage people to do so that they don't have to wait on the phone. So bottom line is we're going to continue to hire people as long as the demand is there, and hopefully the demand will start to resolve itself over the next period of time. But until it does, we're going to continue to make sure we have bodies there.
And the other questions about unemployment that we get are a lot. What does the stimulus plan have in it for Michigan? And Michigan did fare better, if you will, than other other states because the need here is so great.
Right. In fact, the unemployment right now, your checks went up last week by $25 per week, so $100 per month. We also extended unemployment by an additional 13 weeks. So right now, the maximum amount that somebody can be on unemployment is for 72 weeks. When you think about that, Rick, that's over a year that somebody can have access to that service and hopefully be able, while they're waiting for this economy to come back, don't just wait. I hope that they take advantage of No Worker Left Behind, go back, get retrained for an area of growth in our economy. And you know, in Grand Rapids, one area of growth is healthcare.
Governor, thank you very much for answering these questions.